stuff, you know.
Well, this is one of the reasons, Colin. This is indeed not meaning to make light. This is a good point, which is, you know, citizen oversight, and this is one of the reasons we're suggesting that perhaps when the flack began to come out and the spit began to hit the fan about MK Ultra, Operation Artichoke, and Bluebird, and all these things, that in fact that perhaps, and it's a speculation, but perhaps that programs like Guyana were set up so that they could take place outside of the control of the Senate Intelligence Oversight Committee and things like that.
Beyond that,
can we have no power?
Well, Caller, the thing is that what the very question you asked, isn't there somebody in Washington who can sort of bring these characters to heel, really touches on what could be called the overall theme of the three broadcasts on the station. Well, 4 accounting Radio Free America.
I know, but I mean...
But the thing is that you asked, isn't there someone in Washington? Well, President Kennedy was attempting to gain control over the CIA, and they cut him down in Dallas like he was a pimp on a downtown Saturday night. The answer is, as of this moment, no. It would appear that the intelligence agencies have a very firm control over the government.
Another example is that Jimmy Carter, when he came into office in 1976, was very much aware of some of the things that the CIA and other groups had been responsible for, and he was himself rather upset and perhaps even one could say frightened about the prospects of having to deal with a rogue organization of this type, and he was trying to push through Theodore Sorensen to be head of the CIA so that he could start his own clean-out of the CIA.
Theodore Sorensen's, quote, good guy or something?
Well, Theodore Sorensen was apparently somebody responsive enough to Carter and to the Democratic liberal contingent, I guess, that they felt that he could make some progress. Theodore Sorensen, though, was resisted so strongly by the hardcore of the CIA that they had to settle on a compromise candidate, Stansfield Turner, who did basically nothing. He was probably a benign presence, but a benign presence in the sense that, say, you know, a dust puppy in the corner is a benign presence. He certainly didn't have any great effects on the CIA. So again, at least a couple of presidents have tried very strongly to come to grips with the CIA, and at this point, you know, the Reagan administration is currently, quote, unleashing them again. So it is a difficult problem.
Why don't we just, like, take a vote and get rid of them altogether?
Would it were that simple? Again, one of the things we talk about so often is the incorporation of mafiosi and Nazis into the intelligence system, and neither the mafia nor the Nazis are known to pay much respect for authority, and if you try to get them to do that, usually they get rid of you.
Yeah, and they don't usually get voted in, or at least not after the first time. But no, it's seriously,
join them.
Seriously,
mafia in there.
Well, we're not suggesting you join them, but we're suggesting that you...
No, not me, the CIA and the mafia.
Well, that goes back a long ways, and I don't think it was if you can't fight them, join them kind of a decision. It was like, hey, it works for them, let's us try it too. But to be very serious, your call and your question is a very good one and a serious one, and I don't know if we necessarily have the resources here to talk about the kind of political activity that are needed to curb this kind of thing. We're just trying to, first of all, sell people on the idea that this stuff does exist, and hopefully other people of less researching bent, but of a more active bent would then, you know...
I know, but like lots of people don't take it seriously. Like I tell my mom some of the stuff that I hear, you know, on your shows, and she says, "Y'all, that's not true. No way. It's just a bunch of commies."
Two quick points, caller. As far as people not believing it, one of the things we constantly emphasize is that people tape these shows off the air if they can, so that they can relate the record, maybe make some notes so that you can quote some books and some sources. That's one thing. And you know, with regard to what can be done, that again touches on sort of the motivating force behind this show. What we're trying to do is to equip people with the information so that they know what's going on, which is always the first step towards correcting something. And the reason we use this hard documentary format and sort of hand you the information on a platter is so that you and all of the other people in the audience can begin to take some action to try and correct it, begin informing people, because we can't do the job, and certainly if Kennedy couldn't do it, we can't do the job, but the idea is if you get enough people out there who know what's going on, they can bring about the changes.
What do you suggest I do if I wanted to do this, you know, if I wanted to help my country?
I would suggest learning the information first of all, and then going out and not only talking to people privately, but also phoning up talk shows on other stations, and quoting sources is a real good way to do it. That's why we hand out the information, and it gets discouraging having people tell you to put it someplace, but the thing is that one of the things to keep in mind is that issues generally are decided by about 5% of the population who get active on each side, and the other 90% sit around and accept whatever results the two contesting 5% come up with, and so even if you get 1 person in 10, that's quite good results, and all that really will be necessary in the end.
Okay?
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thanks for your call. I should just say, well, we have a phone line open at 941-2500. Two lines open now, actually. And before I go to the next call, just to give you an idea, again, of the kinds of things that can happen when people are introduced to this stuff. Now, my own personal grandmother, who is a wonderful woman, but who about 10 or 12 years ago or so, when Ronald Reagan was governor of California, was not particularly interested in politics, thought Ronald Reagan had a nice smile, he was a nice man, he was a nifty guy, and voted for him, and really was pretty conservative in her values. Because of the fact, now again, this is where getting somebody to listen to you is important, but because of the fact that I was a relative of hers, began to listen to some of the stuff that we were doing, began to read the newspaper, began to follow this kind of stuff, and has gone through a complete 180-degree switch, and she is now actively interested in politics, and she is a senior citizen. I mean, this is a late-in-life change, is actively interested in politics, cuts things out, sends them to us up here at KFJC, goes through all kinds of stuff, and really knows her stuff, too. Again, just because she was given the opportunity to hear this information from somebody who she at least had reason to listen to. So this is when the caller's talking about his mother or something. This is perhaps the kind of approach that you can take with people. Anyway, back to the phones again. There's a little private Nip-Tuck family anecdote. Good evening, Oakland. Welcome to Radio Free America.
Yeah, hi. Earlier you were talking about, like, the family, connection to, like, the Leighton and his family's background and the Hinckleys.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw the World Vision commercial, and it kind of struck me odd that the guy doing it was Art Linkletter, and then it may have some kind of theory that Gary Linkletter could have been the Zodiac or something like that.
Well, it was Robert Linkletter, who may very well have been the Zodiac killer, and who also apparently had some connections to the Manson family. People apparently had been involved. People who knew him quite well testified that, alleged that Robert Linkletter had in fact been either the Zodiac killer and or a leader or a functionary in the Manson organization.
I'm not familiar with this particular stuff that Dave's talking about, caller, but I do know that it's common knowledge that Art Linkletter's daughter, Diane Linkletter, supposedly jumped to her death while under the influence of LSD. For what that's worth.
Yeah, that's what. That's what I mean. The connection between families is what. It got to me because I heard the maids talking about Robert Linkletter. I thought she said Gary, but Robert Linkletter could have been him, and then I see Art Linkletter doing commercials for World Vision. So it struck me odd.
Also, according to the same people who maintained to me that Robert Linkletter was involved with Zodiac and Manson, his daughter did not take LSD and jump out of a window, but his daughter found out about her brother, attempted to inform the authorities, and was thrown out a window, basically, or went out a window one way or another. Interestingly enough, apparently also her brother-in-law, I think Robert Linkletter's sister's husband, also supposedly committed suicide, and again, apparently the same people, and again, this is private statements to me, the same people maintained that he also had attempted to inform the authorities of what Robert was up to, and was deep six for his trouble.
This is all news to me, but I think that there's an appropriate phrase that springs to mind here, which is Art Linkletter's own, which is, well, hey, kids do the darndest things.
Well, this was from a May to about 4 or 5 years ago, so 1980 is the information.
Right, kids do the darndest things. Go ahead, caller.
Okay, that's about it, but I wonder, if I'll take this off the air, what was Richard Nixon's, again, involvement in bringing Reverend Moon over here? I forget, there.
Well, I don't think we didn't say about Reverend Moon, but the Saran family, some political friends of the Nixons, basically, and personal friends and political allies sponsored the Saran family's entry into the U.S. The Nixon administration did have connections to the Moonies. Notably, the Moonies supported him very loyally during Watergate.
Right. We also have talked in the past about Richard Nixon was almost personally responsible for sponsoring in a Romanian fascist by the name of Nicolae Moloxa into the company, and set up, through Nixon's own law firm, a dummy company so Moloxa would have an excuse to come into the country. And Moloxa was the funder of the Romanian Iron Guard, who had pogroms all over Romania and killed thousands and thousands of Jews during World War II. So that may be also something that you've gotten wrapped in there.
Okay, well, thanks, guys.
Thanks for calling.
Bye-bye.
Okay, back to the phones again, 415-941-2500. And good evening, Mountain View. Welcome to Radio Free America.
Hi.
Hello.
I wanted to ask Dave a question. I don't know whether it's appropriate to talk about it, but I was listening to Mae Brussel, I think it was last night, and I thought I heard her say that Gordon Novell had told you that he had done something to a certain publisher.
it's not appropriate to talk about simply because I spoke with Novell for a long period of time off the phone, off the air rather. I played about a half-hour excerpt from a guest appearance I did on KOME, and played that for you. Then Novell and I spoke for about 45 minutes off the phone, and I don't know how much of that. I spoke to May. May and I are good friends, and we talk all the time. And I related some of the information to May. She then put a little bit of it on the air. I don't say to May, listen, you can say this on the air, and you can't say this. But the information that Novell talked about off the air, I don't necessarily feel I'm in a position to talk about. Novell is not an individual you want to cross, and it's just not something that I'm going to discuss. However, if people would like to find out something about it, then they can order May Brussels tape 676, and the address is Post Office Box 22511, Carmel, California 93922, and send a stamped self-addressed envelope if you want to order it, and then you can hear what May said, if you didn't catch what she said on the air.
Well, that's having your cake and eating it, too. I like that. That's good. That's good. I like that. Won't discuss it, but if you want to hear about where it was discussed, here's the address. Okay, there you go. See, we're a clever bunch up here in the radio world.
It's just a question of the fact that, again, Novell, off the air, he talked about a lot of things. We had quite a conversation, and I asked him specifically if he would mind if I played the section of the tape, of our conversation on the air, and he, with what I took to be a little degree of alarm, or certainly surprise, asked, you're taping this conversation? And I emphasized, no, that was the part on the air. He said a lot of heavy things off the air, and if this was coming from someone else, perhaps I'd feel free to talk about it, but Novell is notorious for suing people who cross him, and one thing I will tell you he said off the air, and it was one of the very last things he said, is he said, quote, one of these days I'm going to get wet as hell with all the people who have ever crossed me, meaning he's going to kill them. And again, so
nifty guy.
Take that as an advisory.
Well, I really feel for you. You must have been shocked.
I thought it was pretty evident when I played the tape. At first, you get a lot of people messing with you when you do this kind of work, and I start giving you the raspberry, so to speak. And at first I wasn't sure, I wasn't expecting to find myself talking to Gordon Novell on KOME at 3 o'clock on a Monday morning. But I tell you, could have, I was sitting in my water at that point. There was no question about it. Plus, when I came out, I found the door, the lock on my car door on the passenger side unlocked, and I was quite sure I locked it. So I don't know whether I simply blew it or whether there was a warning of sorts there. You're in a position to make out for yourself.
I should just cut in real quick and mention for those of you who are not familiar that Gordon Novell's name, the reason why it's being bandied about so is because it comes up quite a great deal in connection with some of the things we've talked about. He claims unfairly in connection with the John F. Kennedy assassination. He himself admits to some involvement with Charles Colson and Watergate and the erasure of tapes, although he claims that the act was never done, but that he was consulted about it. So for those of you out there not familiar with the names, that's who we're talking about. And Dave was caught on the air at KOME doing another show, sitting in as a guest, in the middle of the night, 3 o'clock in the morning, talking about Gordon Novell, when Gordon Novell all of a sudden picks up the phone and starts talking to him. And I must say, I think Dave handled it very well under the circumstances, because most of us would have been pretty much sucking air and having our eyes bug out at the sheer bizarreness of having Gordon Novell call you up on a San Jose radio station at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Well, if it had been TV, you would have seen my eyes bug. I certainly was nonplussed. I wasn't able to sleep all night. I wasn't afraid, but I was just energized. I was afraid when Novell first called, but you never know. It's just the future lies ahead. I sure would. My mind was thoroughly blown. I hadn't imagined that at all. And,
I think it's like bullets, though. I think it's the ones that you hear, not the ones that are going to get you.
That's exactly. I figured, but it certainly it was a shock. It was a real shock.
Anything else, caller?
Yeah, I just wanted to know how likely you thought that was. As I recall, his story was he was driving somewhere, flipping the dial on the radio, and just happened to come across the show, and then managed to spend almost 2 hours talking to you on the telephone. Was he calling from a payphone, or?
That's what he said. Well, I don't know if he was calling from a payphone. I didn't hear the usual clicks, unless he was doing a credit card thing. I don't know, but
electronics whiz, isn't he?
Yeah, he's an electronics whiz. Maybe he has a car phone. I don't know, but
blue box.
You don't know.
Creepy.
Well, I don't know what the story was, but I find it a little hard to believe that it was accidental, but,
It's just another addendum to the world of conspiracy and coincidence,
Well, you never know. I found it a little hard to believe it was a coincidence. On the other hand, at 3 o'clock on a Monday morning, there's precious little radio around, and, most stations have, nothing at all. Either they go off the air or they have a lot of really boring talk. And, if you're an intelligence driver, he is now, among the places he's based is Los Angeles, and, if you're an intelligence agent, what would you rather hear? Hear about, somebody telling you how to, mulch your geraniums, or listening to talking about stuff like this. I'm skeptical of whether it could have been an accident. I don't know. I mean,
My next question, did you ask him what... I don't remember hearing what he was doing in this area.
I didn't ask.
Didn't even ask?
The implication was that he was on business driving from Los Angeles to San Francisco, as I recall, but it was just an implication.
What I asked him about, both on and off the air, were generally either things which were already a matter of public record, or I asked his opinions of why certain things went on. For example, I asked him what he thought about L. Fletcher Prouty's thesis that the CIA had deliberately deep-sixed the Bay of Pigs, and he said he felt that it was probably